it was fascinating to see how she handled the pressure, because there was a point in time when she was in labor that she wanted to quit. There was a time that my wife wanted to quit and say, just take me to the hospital. I don't want to do this. I don't want to push. I don't want to feel this. I don't want to feel this, because it was hard. The pressure was hard. When she said that, all the midwives, they started smiling like, okay, cool. So the baby's about to come out. Because that pressure now is telling her that we're getting ready to transition. Transition is usually met with pressure.
Socially awkward. Socially awkward. Let's go.
Yo, what's good, everybody? This is your boy Lorelco Molzak, and you're listening to the Socially Awkward podcast. Hope everyone is doing well. I'm glad that you're here. How was your week? How are you feeling today? I think these are very important questions to ask yourself. How are you feeling today? What's the pulse like right now? What's the temp check right now in your life? What's it like? Huh? No, but for real, y'all, I'm glad that you're here. I'm glad that you're listening. We're on season 3 of the Socially Awkward podcast, and it's been a blast so far. I feel like we've had some really great conversations. I feel like I've really dived into some things personally, some feelings that I've been feeling, and which is kind of working through what triggered means. And so, like, we're in this series called Triggered, and today I want to talk about something called transitions, triggered by transitions. And I found it very interesting that I'm talking about transitions when I'm going through a transition right now. I went through a couple of transitions throughout this year. But as some of you may know, my wife and I, we just had our third son. Let's go. I got 3 of them boys, huh? Three sons. And so I'm on my third son, and I'm really, really excited. I'm really happy. His name is Koa Peace Molzak. And he's my heart, man. And so just going through the transition from my wife being pregnant with Koa being in the belly to now Koa being outside of the belly. And so that's a whole transition. Postpartum, that's a whole nother transition. And so I just want to talk about what does transitions mean in our lives, and how do we handle transitions, and are we triggered by them? We're in a season now where we're going from summer to fall to winter. And in this particular season, it's hard for a lot of people. Thanksgiving, Christmas, the holidays are very hard for a lot of people when it comes to transitioning, because a lot of people don't have really good experiences in the holiday season, Thanksgiving and Christmas time. And, this time is hard for a lot of people. And I've recognized that because it can be hard for me as well. Thinking of my father and thinking of wanting to have that relationship or wanting to experience certain things that are no longer there, or just not there, and having to pivot or having to transition my thought process of, I had my father here on Christmas and now he's not here, or now I went from having 2 kids, on Christmas, now I have 3. And so it's a transitional period. But how do we handle those things? And for me, just wanting to encourage you that transitions, let's be honest, are hard. Transitions are hard. And what I've learned is transitions are usually met with pressure. Transitions are usually met with pressure. If you've noticed, anytime that you have to pivot or to move, there has to be some type of pressure involved. For me to get from where I'm at in my living room to my office, there has to be some type of pressure to transition from this spot to the next. If I have to grab equipment, well, that's a transition. That usually is met with pressure. Okay, I got to pick things up. I got to carry the load, carry them back into my office. Or, everything in life dealing with transitions are usually met with some type of pressure. Whether it be spiritually, whether it be mentally, physically. Right now, again, I'm going through an Achilles. I'm in recovery now. This is a different transition from when I injured it to now having surgery, and then to having to be put into a cast and a splint, and now be in a walking boot. Now I'm in recovery where I can drive now. These are all transitions. Now I have to learn in my mind. Do I have to relearn how to drive, or? Well, I have to relearn how to walk because I still can't walk the way I really want to. Now I have to relearn how to jump. All of these are transitions, but they're met with pressure. And a lot of times we think that we should just go through life without pressure. When God is like, I didn't create transitions to be without pressure. The reason why we have pressure is that it strengthens us or it catapults us to the next level. Now, pressure can also push us down if we allow it to. It's all about mentality. It's all about how we see the transition. Because if we see the transition in a negative light, then we'll allow that pressure to sink us and to mold us in a negative fashion, whereby we'll be looking backwards instead of forwards, whereby we'll be taking further steps back from our purpose than moving forward toward our purpose. We won't succeed. We'll just be stagnant in our growth. And so it's all about how we see the transition and how we handle that pressure. And so what I'm seeing in regards to our culture and our society, I see a lot of people who do not handle pressure well. I see a lot of people who cave at the thought of pressure because during that transitional period, they're so familiar with where they are. They don't want to move to another place where they are unfamiliar with. And many times when we're in transition, we become stagnant because we're used to being in the same spot. We're used to growing with the same people or not growing with the same people. We're used to connecting on the same surface level, that we don't try to improve ourselves and try to experience new things to grow and to develop, to mature. And during that maturation process, we have to understand that there is also a transition of pressure in order to mature. We have to go through things in order to mature. We have to struggle a little bit in order to mature. And that struggle is usually a transitional period. I tell people all the time when I was watching my wife give birth, and it was we did a supernatural, I say supernatural, it was supernatural to me, but we did a home birth. And it was incredible. It was amazing to see, because what I got to see was the different stages of transitions with labor. There's early labor, there's active labor, there's a season of transition where we're transitioning to push. And so I saw all of these different transitions, from her being cool, feeling the contractions, to now the contractions becoming more consistent. And now, it's active labor. Now I'm like, okay, we got to do all the things. We have to move. We have to, counter that pressure. And then to being active, to transitioning to now we have to push. It was fascinating to see how she handled the pressure, because there was a point in time when she was in labor that she wanted to quit. There was a time that my wife wanted to quit and say, just take me to the hospital. I don't want to do this. I don't want to push. I don't want to feel this. I don't want to feel this, because it was hard. The pressure was hard. Now, I know she didn't mean it, but that's what she felt. And so she vocalized what she felt. That's another lesson. Sometimes we don't vocalize what we feel. We don't speak it out, and we internalize it, and then we fall further back, because in our development process, we fall further back in our labor, because we haven't voiced what it is that we need or what it is that we feel. My wife was saying, I want to go to the hospital because she needed help. She needed an understanding of what to do next. So the midwives were teaching her how to breathe. The midwives were saying, okay, she's in a good spot. Because if she never said, I want to go to the hospital, no one would have known, okay, where is she? When she said that, all the midwives, they started smiling like, okay, cool. So the baby's about to come out. Because that pressure now is telling her that we're getting ready to transition. Transition is usually met with pressure. And as soon as she had that thought that I need to go, everybody around was like, he's about to come out. What you're about to birth in your life is going to be met with transitions of pressure. What you're going through, maybe what you're going through right now, is being met with transitions of pressure. And you just didn't know how to name it. You didn't know that it was called a transition because you don't know what's on the other side of the transition. All you know is you're in labor and it hurts. All you know is that in your life right now, I'm in active labor and I continue to push, but I don't know what's coming out. I don't know what's on the other side of this. I'm struggling. I don't know what is this? What is it that I'm feeling right now? What is this pressure? Why do I have to experience this pressure? I had a friend tell me years ago, the end is worth the struggle. Sometimes you have to struggle in order to get to the end. But during that transitional process, that transitional period, it's important that we don't give up. It's important that we don't lose hope. It's important that we don't lose sight of the goal. Okay, God, what is the goal? You have to first ask God, what is it that he's trying to show you? What is it that he's trying to birth inside of you? What are you laboring for? These are questions you have to ask yourself. Once you have the answer to what you're laboring for, you'll be able to better interpret what it is that you're feeling and how you're supposed to feel and how you're supposed to push. I found it interesting that when my wife was pushing in our bathtub, they told her that you're going to have one major push and then you're going to have different type. You're just going to have like you're going to breathe differently. After you push, breathe differently. It's like you just, you breathe in and out real quick. And then you push, breathe in and out. And I started seeing my baby's head go in, out, in, out. And what that was telling me was that we have to learn how to breathe in pressure. A lot of us hold our breath. A lot of us, we when we're in pressure situations or high stress situations, we hold our breath. We're like, oh, I don't know what to do. Oh, and we're in, it's like we are in danger of rupturing something because we're holding our breath for so long. So when I'm working out and I'm doing either a pull or a push exercise, they tell me to make sure you breathe in when you're pulling in and breathe out when you're pulling out. But one thing they've always taught me when I was in high school is that don't hold your breath, especially when it's heavy. Don't hold your breath because you're in danger of rupturing something. A lot of us are in transition, but we're holding our breath. We're in danger of rupturing something. We're in danger of losing something. We're in danger of disrupting the whole process because we will not breathe. Breathing is an essential part of going through transition. And I found that very, very interesting and fascinating when I saw my wife breathing. And as soon as she pushed and breathed, and the baby came out, I was like, oh, okay, wow, that was an incredible experience. Now, I didn't feel that, I can't feel what she felt. But what I can do is imagine and just kind of put myself in her shoes and put myself in different positions where I'm pushing and breathing at the same time. I'm pushing and breathing at the same time. Because if I don't breathe when I push, I lose my life. If I don't breathe when I push, I'm in danger of losing everything that I'm pushing for. We have to be careful of holding our breath, because what we do is we hold our breath thinking, I don't know what to do next. I'm just gonna hold my breath and just hope for the best. But breathing requires work. When you breathe, when you work, you breathe. You don't work and hold your breath. You're going to lose your life. You work and breathe because that's what's going to help you to keep going. When you hold your breath, you stop. You can't keep going. You stop in attention. But if I'm breathing and pushing, that means that I'm moving forward. That means there's forward progress. I don't want to get to a place in my life where I stop moving and I stop breathing in the middle of my push. I don't want to get to a place in my life that in the middle of pressure, I just stop. I just hold my breath and just hope for the best. Because that way God can't move within me because I'm not breathing. And what sense does it make for me to have life if I don't use the life that he gives me? What sense does it make for me to hold my breath and not have faith enough to know that God is going to push me through it just as long as I breathe? Too many of us are just sitting here, just not breathing. We're just holding our breath, sitting on the couch, just holding our breath, butt cheeks tight, just. What you holding your breath for? Breathe so that God can move within you. He can't move you if you're not breathing. God can't move within you if you're not breathing. If you're always tight, you're just tight, just holding on, just tight. How can you receive what God has for you if you're tight, you're holding it? How can you give what God has placed inside of you to others if you're holding so tight and you're just holding, I'm pushing, but I'm holding my breath. I don't want to go nowhere. I'm just holding my breath. God can't do nothing with that. He can't do, your fists are tight. He can't do anything with that. Your eyes closed, your vision's distorted. Come on, y'all. We have to learn to breathe in the midst of pressure. And that's something I'm working on. Even with counseling, it tells you breathe. Like when I'm dealing with high stress situations, I didn't realize I don't deal with stress well. I didn't realize this. But he was saying, you need to breathe. You need to breathe. Make it a habit of your life, Lorelco, to breathe. Make it a habit of your life to just go outside and just take a couple of breaths in and take a couple of breaths out. That'll help you move forward. Because the moment I just stop and not breathe and I just keep going, I'm just basically holding my breath. And again, I can't see what God has for me, and I can't give what God has me to give if I'm holding tight and holding on and holding my breath. We have to learn to breathe. That's a major point. That's a major focal point when it comes to transitions. And some people may say God didn't create us to go through pressure, but I disagree. God did create us to have to go through some things. Yes, if Jesus had to go through some pressure when he's sitting at the Garden of Gethsemane, when he's asking God, Lord, if you can take this cup from me, please take it. That's pressure. That's because he knew that he was in the middle of transition. It's like he was getting ready to birth something out. It's like my wife was getting ready to birth something out. You know what, God? Like, I don't want, just take me to the hospital. Give me an epidural. Do all that stuff. I don't want to deal with none of this pain. Take me. That's what Jesus was at. He was in this place of transition where he was like, I don't want to do this, honestly. If I can be real with you, like, I know I'm God. I know I'm Jesus. I know I'm the Son of God. But my flesh don't agree with this. You know what I'm saying? This feels like it's going to be this is hard. This is a lot of pressure. But in that pressure, there was a transition. Because if he didn't get through that moment then, he wouldn't have been able to handle what God was birthing out of him. If my wife didn't get through that moment then, she wouldn't be able to handle what it is that God was trying to show her. Not just physically, I'm talking about mentally and spiritually. God is always trying to show us something spiritually in a physical situation. He's always showing us something. He's always giving us glimpses of what to interpret what it is that he's trying to show us. And so Jesus, yes, was met with pressure, but it was during a transitional period. You know, when King David, if I can go Bible, when King David was a young boy, he was a shepherd's boy. He was working in the fields. And when he was anointed and appointed to become king, he had to go through a transition. Before he becomes king, he had to serve the king. And during that service, the king Saul didn't want him there half the time. There was an angry spirit of the Lord that just came and just disrupted Saul's spirit. And he was just like, yo, I'm just going to start throwing javelins at David. While David is playing the harp to try to calm his spirit, he's met with pressure. Before he becomes king, there's a transition of pressure. So how many of us are going through a transition that we're met and faced with pressure? Not all transitions deal with pressure. Most are usually met with pressure. And so I would like to say this, that a lot of transitions that we've faced in our life can become triggers. When I was met with the transition of my father passing away and now having to go through life without him, that's a different type of transition for me. I grew up in my early 20s, throughout my 20s, saying, God, I need a mentor. I didn't have a mentor throughout all of my 20s. Didn't have a mentor. I didn't have anybody I could really just talk to and say, hey, can call up and actually kind of see myself or see them as a father figure. I didn't have that. So I went through a transitional period. I feel like I was a nomad, just walking aimlessly by myself. And then I get married. I'm still walking aimlessly, I feel like. And I'm just going through this period where I'm just like, okay, God, I know you're leading me, but I wish I had someone that kind of help me. You get what I'm saying? I just felt like I was in this period of just wandering aimlessly alone. That was a transition for me. I didn't know how to handle my father not being there. I didn't know how to cope with I didn't know how to cope with my father not being there. And so that transition can be a trigger for me, especially during the holidays. Or, for a lot of people, you're going through transitions and maybe that transition was met with a loss and you're triggered by it in certain days. You're triggered by it by what people say. You're triggered by it by a certain scent or a smell. And you don't know how to maneuver or how to counteract that feeling because it's a trigger. You're triggered by that transition. But now that we know that transitions are usually met with pressure, once we feel that, we can figure out, what was I supposed to learn then that I didn't learn now? Did I learn my lesson in that transition? Did I understand what God was trying to teach me in that transition? Yeah, it was hard. It was met with a lot of pressure. I didn't understand it. I don't know why it happened. Why me? Why did I have to be on the other end of that? But what is the lesson behind that? God, what are you trying to teach me? What did I not learn then that I'm supposed to learn now? That's probably creeping up in my today life. Because a lot of times when we don't learn the transitional period and we don't understand or interpret what it is that God is trying to show us during that transition period, it shows up in our everyday life. It shows up in our everyday life until we learn it. Once we learn it, okay, it goes away most times because we know how to recognize that trigger and it doesn't affect us anymore. So what is it? What is it? We have to ask ourselves, what is it? What's that one thing that God is trying to teach me that I never learned during that transition? One thing I knew, in hindsight, thinking about that transitional period of my father not being there, from him being there, from me seeing him, from me not seeing him, was that God is always with me. I'm looking for mentors. I'm looking for leadership. I'm looking for men to kind of help me in this transition. But God's like, why didn't you look to me? I'm looking to cope with different things. Like, okay, God, I don't know where to go. God was like, well, why didn't you come to me? And so the very thing that I didn't learn then kept creeping up in my everyday life. And I never understood it. What is it, God? What am I missing? Come to me. Let me be your father. Allow me to be the shoulder that you can lean on. And that's hard. If I can be honest, that's hard because I'm not to say I'm not familiar with God, but I'm in an unfamiliar position in my life. It's easy to lean on God when things are good. I'm like, okay, God, I trust you, man. You got it. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm in my bag this season. You know what I'm saying? I can trust you. But it's hard when you lose something, or you may lose it all, and God says, lean on me. I'm like, bro, like, lean on you. You could have stopped this. You could have prevented this. And you want me to lean on you? That's hard. Because now you're going from a place of familiarity to now a place of unfamiliarity. How do you transition from a place where you're used to being to a place where God is trying to show you that you've never been before? This is where God matures you. In every transitional period, God is maturing you. He's trying to teach you something. He's trying to process you, and he's trying to grow you in a place so that you'll be able to handle the next step or the next test that comes your way, or the next transition, because transitions are usually met with other transitions that follow. May not be the same scenario, may not be the same case, but there's always going to be some type of transitional pressure later on in your life. Whether you're turning from 30 to 40, or from 40 to 41, that transitional period where you go from not having a baby to a baby, from being single to married, from married to kids, from kids to being old, from no job to a job, or from a job to no job, or to experience a layoff. Like, these are all transitions, but it's all about how we handle the transitions, and will we allow it to trigger us and to retreat or to hold our breath? Are we going to hold our breath, or are we going to continue to breathe? These are things that we have to continue to teach ourselves and learn, that once we are met with this pressure, do we lean on God? Do we continue to breathe so that God continue to work within us and through us? Or do we retreat, or do we hold our breath? And so this is a conversation that I just wanted to share with you about transitions. So my wife asked me a question before her water broke. She said, Lorelco, what is the definition of transitions? What does that mean to you? I said, give me a moment. Give me a moment. And so I go outside and start talking to God. And this is what God showed me. Transitions usually are met with two questions. Where do I go from here? Or what do I do from here? Two questions. Where do I go from here? Or what do I do from here? Where do I go from here is a question that's usually followed by a flight response. I'm running away. Where do I go from here? Because I'm in a situation I'm trying to run from. Where do I go from here? Where am I going? I don't want to be here anymore. Where do I go from here? That's a question where you're fleeing, you're running away from something. That's a transitional period. And then there's the question, what do I do from here? Which is total opposite. It's not about running. It's about sitting in the very thing that you're supposed to sit in order to get to the next level, whether it's pain, whether it's suffering, whether it's disappointment, whether it's resentment or regret, guilt, shame. Sit in that and ask God, Lord, what do I do from here? I'm not running anymore. Too many of us are in transition and we're trying to figure out, where do I go from here? I'm running from this pain. I'm running from the suffering. The Bible says in Romans, it says, for I reckon that the sufferings of this present time are not worthy to be compared to the glory which shall be revealed in us. We have to learn how to sit in the pressure, sit in the disappointment, sit in it. If we always run from it, we won't learn from it. If we always run from the very thing that we're supposed to sit in, we'll never transition to a greater place, to a better level, a higher level in God. We'll never exceed or succeed the level that God wants us to be at. We have to learn to sit in. Are you sitting in that dysfunction for a minute? And just wrap your mind around it and say, okay, God, help me to figure out what do I do from this place, man, because this place is tough. This place is hard. I'm not going to run from it anymore. I'm not going to run from this feeling of temptation. I feel so tempted. Let me run and do something. Where do I go from here? No, that's the wrong question to ask yourself in this transitional period. It's what do I do from here? What do I do when the labor is so hard and I'm ready to give up and I don't want to push anymore? What do? I vocalize it. I tell God, okay, God, I'm at this point where God, I feel like giving up. This is when you actually start talking real to God. And a lot of us, we forget how to talk real. We don't know how to talk real to God. We'll talk real to our friends, to our family, but we don't have raw conversations with God and say, God, I feel like giving up right now. God, I feel like fighting you right now because you're getting on my nerves. We don't want to have those real conversations with God because we feel like maybe God won't hear that. No, God hears that. David talked about it all the Psalms. He's back and forth. God, I feel like you ain't even hearing me, God. Like, what's up? What's up with that? You're not hearing me. Like, be real with God and allow yourself to sit in that pain that you're feeling so that God can comfort you. The Bible says God sent his Holy Spirit to comfort you, to make you feel at ease. But we just have to continue to breathe and speak to God. Talk to him. Tell him how you feel. Be honest with him. Stop lying to God, man. Like, God, I can do it. No, you can't. You can't do it by yourself. You can't do it by yourself. You need God. You need his help. We just have to learn how to ask for it. But a lot of us are too prideful. We're too prideful to ask for help. We're too prideful to get raw and dirty with our emotions and our feelings. And we never get the help that we need. And we never learn how to go through those transitions. We end up rupturing something because we pushed too hard. We didn't breathe. Transitions. Triggered by transitions. I just wanted to help you guys today, man. Like, I want y'all to grasp it. I want y'all to hold fast to this and think about your everyday life. Like, what transitional period am I in? And what pressure should I be feeling? Am I sitting in this pressure? Or am I running from it? Triggered by transitions. I hope this is helping you. Hope this helped you. And if it has, I want you to like, comment, and subscribe. I want you to leave a review. Like, tell me if this podcast is doing something for you. I don't know we're in episode 3, but it's going to get better after this. It's going to continue to get better each time. So I want you to leave a review. I need you to leave a review, leave a comment, rate it, share with your friends. For those who may be going through transitions, they need to hear this message. They need to learn how to breathe. They need to learn how to lean on God. They need to learn how to vocalize what it is that they're feeling in the midst of that transition. And ask that question, am I running from something or am I sitting in it? Because sitting in it is totally different. It's a totally different experience. You actually are feeling the pain instead of running away from it. Oh, hey, if this helped you, please like, comment, subscribe, share. And y'all, till next time. I hope this message helped you. Till next time, next week, same time, Tuesday. Let's get it on the Socially Awkward podcast. I hope you're blessed. Stay blessed. Peace.
Socially awkward. Socially awkward. Let's go.